morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, find yourself in the world. I just want to welcome you for such an exciting topic, as we know that AI is actually always exciting to have conversation about. But just to give you a brief introduction of who I have been inside the IT field for over 30 years, and this stemmed back from the years of programming and went into infrastructure design and infrastructure architect. And then also had cybersecurity back then as well, but now the focus moved into cybersecurity. I have a master's degree inside cybersecurity, so the focus is on cybersecurity and many certifications inside cybersecurity and a part of several boards. Some of them are not listed here, but a part of a lot of things pertaining to cybersecurity. I am a Rotarian, which one of the things that I love so much being a Rotarian, being talking about service above self, and also a part of the Rotarian IT Fellowship, which is really a good organization. I recommend that persons who are Rotarian, and if you're involved inside IT and cybersecurity, I recommend that you join that board. It's a very good group of people. But I also have a co-host a cyber alert podcast with my daughter, and we have used this platform to just to educate persons about cybersecurity and bring the difficult knowledge to make it much easier for a lot of the listeners and a lot of persons who try to just demystify the whole thing about cybersecurity as well. So I enjoy dealing with cybersecurity, enjoy technology, enjoy AI, and this conversation should be very beneficial to all. And I'm excited to be able to be a part and be able to do this as well. What we will be looking at for our agenda in the short space of time that we have to cover, we're going to look at the evolution of cybersecurity. We're going to look at the infrastructure. We're going to look at the rise of AI in cybersecurity, how AI is reshaping the threat landscape. AI-powered attack. We want to look at the new adversary. We're going to look at some real world examples, just discuss them briefly, nothing in depth. And we're going to look how we defend against AI-driven threats, because we realize that we are actually defending against AI now and build a resilient in AI-ready security architecture as well. And then we will have some closing thoughts, and we'll be out with a question and answer as well. I would like to leave you with this quote, open up with this quote. It says that cybersecurity is no longer just about defending system. It's about defending intelligence, both human and artificial. So I want you to think and ponder on that for a bit as we go through this entire presentation as well. So let's look at the infrastructure before AI. We remember that the infrastructure before AI, we had firewalls, we had IDS, which still are in place, but remember how they were signature based. They actually they respond after the fact. Everything was manual incident response, reactive security posture, static rule based, and they were heavily reliant on human analysts, persons to be there to. But when you look at that, we couldn't catch everything, and there was some stuff and gaps that were missing during those times as well. So we realized that we had some limitation there, and our limitation was the defense was always one step behind. We tried to figure out how do we actually keep up with what is going on when we continue to lag behind against the defense, against what was happening during that time. And it was really difficult, and there was a lot of action that was happening at that time. So when we look at the traditional limitation that we had, we realized that it was slow detection and response, which was during the time when we know today we need something that is fast. We need something that we can respond quickly to. We realized there was also high dependency of human involvement. So human had to be involved in every aspect of it. But there are times when human has to sleep, human tired, human actually just will have to look away, have to move away from their desk, move away from the screen. But during that time, how do we cover for those times when we it wasn't able to scale. We couldn't scale it. It was not scalable that easy. And then we realized that it was static rules, but we were dealing with dynamic threats that would continue to evolve. But the rules are static. We had to make these changes in these rules in order to try to keep up with what's going on as the threat changes. And we were finding out that these things was happening after the fact. So we were really lagging behind. So we realized the reality was we were always reacting after the breach. And this is how tradition was, where that we react after the breach. And today we realize that if we act after the breach, we will be inside some serious problems. And that's when we look at tradition, we realize that some changes had to happen. And we had to adapt and make some quick adjustments. So when we look at the legacy versus the AI system today, we see that inside the legacy infrastructure, it was static, as I mentioned. The signature was static. We realized that everything was manual. There was no speed there as well because we couldn't really adapt quickly or change quick enough to be able to just meet the demands. And then when we look at it, it wasn't scalable. We could not scale to where we need to be. And we realized that the scope, the threats was unknown. We couldn't adapt to those things that we did not know. So that's why we were adapting after the fact. We realized that governance at the time was just periodic audits. It wasn't something that was highlighted as important during that time. And everything was the tools was actually not working together to meet the demand and meet the need. So when we look at the AI environment, we realized that the behavior was dynamic. We was going based on the behavior analysis as well. It was also everything was automatic. It wasn't those speed was quick. And we can see that today in some of the tools that we use with AI employed in those tools, we realize that how things has changed. And for a person as myself who have been inside cybersecurity and saw and lived through to the tradition and the legacy stuff, and now saying the stuff that we have today, we realize that these are the things that we need. And what we realized that this was self-learning now inside the AI. And back in the legacy, it was manual rules, but now we have self-learning. We have now the threats now at 0 day. We can actually detect those threats because we have behavior, we can go in pattern, and we are able to predict what is going on and be able to respond quickly. And that's what we need to be able to respond. And real-time policies can change quickly, and that's what we want. And we are able to, it's more converged. So these are the things that we are seeing the different within the legacy and into the current day when we have AI implemented. So when we look at the rise of AI in cybersecurity, we have things like machine learning for pattern recognition. We have behavior. We be able to do analysis on the different behavior. We have predictive threats, intelligence, and these are things that we want to be able to do and be able to ensure that we are doing these things, and we want our system to be able to do this. And we have automation. We are able to scale better. We have real-time decision making. We want to make those decisions as quickly as possible when we are dealing with cybersecurity. And then the shift now from reactive to predictive. So we no longer we are reacting, but right now we are predicting exactly what the next move is. So we are more autonomous, we are more ready, we are more changing, and we want to make sure that that's exactly where we find ourselves. In cybersecurity today, we see AI powered by SIEM, we got SOAR platform, we have user identity behavior analysis, we have automated threat hunting, and we also have AI-driven EDR and XDR solution. So when we look at these type of solutions, we now realize we are no longer inside an environment where that we are signature based, but we want something that is driven by AI. We want something that responds quickly, and we want to ensure that we are covering so many different things with inside our whole security posture as well. And we realize that we are fighting today as well intelligent phishing detection. We need something to be able to tell those phishing, because before, where that we were looking for bad grammar, we're looking for certain indicators with inside an email, we realize that today that persons are using AI. And because AI is so heavily involved, it's difficult to detect whether or not that email is a malicious one. So you now having to use AI to be able to detect these things. How AI has changed it reshaped infrastructure. Well, AI security is embedded into the infrastructure. At one point, security was a thing of the past. It was more of an afterthought. But when we look at security, we always say security should be baked in, which are not bolted on, which means that everything you do, every application, everything that's going on within the company, security is embedded inside it. We don't put it in place and think afterthought how we will secure it. When from the initial conversation is being had, you want security in the midst, and you want that conversation with security to be in place. We want to ensure that we have continuous monitoring, predictive, scanning. We want periodic scanning. You want this stuff to be continuous and something. One, and in the legacy area, we just to scan once a week, once a month, or every other day. And we see that now we can do continuous monitoring that we couldn't do before. We are able to do that now, and we can see the change within inside how AI is reshaping the infrastructure. We have zero trust architecture, and that's a whole topic in itself when we look at zero trust, and we would not deep dive into that, but we would just mention that as well as something that's changed. Autonomous response, we want response to be quick. As I mentioned before, we do not want response to be delayed, and for every delayed response, that means that that's an opportunity for a system to be breached. It's more integration across the cloud and endpoints and identity. So you will now have more integration straight across your on-prem, as well as your cloud, straight across the board. And that is exactly where we can see the architecture is changing. It's just no longer separate, where we have on-prem by themselves, we have cloud by itself, and then we have some other architecture. But what we are doing now, we are able to see this whole integration straight across the board, so we have better insight, oversight, and we are able to respond as quickly as we can. AI is a double-edged sword, and I remember writing articles, and there are several articles over there. I have an article that I speak to AI as a double-edged sword, and you can always reach out to me on social media, on LinkedIn, and I can always share that article with you. But what we are looking at is AI for defense, which we have faster detection, we reduce human error. And sometimes, like I mentioned, there are times when humans do get tired. And when humans are tired, they can actually use AI to assist in those perspectives. It's also scalable response as well. We want the response to be quick as well. But when on the off side of this, we also have AI for attackers. There are automated attacks out there. We see deep fake, and we see social engineering. We see intelligent malware that we didn't see before. We are now seeing these, and we are now have to respond to these. And we now have to realize that, look, AI is good, but we also seeing a double-edged, so we call it a double-edged sword in some perspective as well. So when we look at the threats landscape, the AI-powered threat landscape, what we are saying is that we see AI-generated phishing campaign, as I mentioned before. We're saying that deepfake voice video impersonation of your CEOs. We're saying a lot of that as well. And we also see malware that's changed, that is actually adapting as well to your environment, adapting to the response. And with legacy system, with regards to the way, if you are not using AI or using something that can catch these kind of changes quickly, then you will fall prey to a cyber attack. AI-driven credential stuffing, we're seeing that as well. We're seeing also automated vulnerability discovery as well. So these are things that we are seeing out there. The new reality for us is intelligent adversaries. So we know that the attacker are more intelligent with regards because of AI, and we too, as we defend, we have to use AI to ensure that we are defending against the attacker. So, example of AI-driven phishing. We have personalized email generated via AI, and I think I could go on record to say I don't think there is anyone who is not using AI out there right now. Whether you're using AI just to write a letter, to write some note, or just to respond to something. And there might be also programmers who use AI to help them debug some code that they have. I think everyone is using AI out there. And AI is being used even to mimic the tone and the style, the writing style of someone. And if you use AI long enough to write a letter, you would note after a while it learns the way that your writing style. So when you begin to write, you will look at that and AI have already, begin to learn you and use your writing style and know exactly what you want. And in fact, AI will even respond to you and use your name when you ask a question. So what impact this is? The impact for us is that a higher success rate, and it becomes harder to detect when we start looking at emails. So we realize that also that there, because of this change with regards to AI and the introduction of AI, we also have to find some way to use AI inside the organization to help to defend against these. So when we look at deepfake attack, a deepfake is one of the ones that we are seeing a lot of. CEO voice cloning, using for fraud. I've seen a few of those out there. Real-time impersonation where that they can call an individual and pretend that they are the CEO, and that person can execute some sort of transaction or some sort of money or whatever deposit, because they really thought that they were actually listening to the CEO, speaking to the CEO. And one of the things we have tried to teach our people is to check. You might hear the CEO on the phone and still go back and check. Put in certain checks in place to confirm that that was the CEO, not just receiving a call. Now that we know that AI is doing this stuff. So just putting the different checks and balances in place as well. So what this is actually can cause, because of this is happening, is now we have trust is now the primary attack surface. So they're using targeting trust. If you hear your CEO voice and you respond to that voice, you trust it. You trust the CEO, so you will execute on the behalf of the company. So when we look at AI and how it changed and the evolution of malwares, we see that, remember, self-learning, it adapts to defense, it evades signature-based tools. So if you're using a signature-based tool, such as an email or any signature-based tools within your organization, you can see where that the possibility of your system being breached is great. And you have to consider and review what goes on inside your organization and see if AI-based tools would be best for your organization. So the shift now is from static malware. So we have seen malware a change in the adaptive threat. We are now seeing out there as well. So let's look at some real world example. we're going to take some time on these. And AI enhanced ransomware. We realize that when we look at ransomware, the automated target discovery, we're seeing optimized lateral movement. And all it is that someone gain access to your system and they begin to move on the same level to across within the infrastructure as well. We look at persons looking at precision attack, they're looking at timing, they are sitting there and waiting just for the right time. And we've seen a lot of these out there happening. So when we look at the impact, so there's always have to be an impact that you have to look at. What's the impact? The impact is that it's faster, more. When you look at the breaches and all of that, the breaches is more dangerous to the company, to the organization. And when you have something that you cannot defend against, that is faster than you can defend against, then you know that you will be inside some serious problem with regards to breach. So infrastructure under attack, we're looking at identity system, bypassing two-factor authentication. I know there were times when we always say that two-factor, but there's something called two-factor fatigue, where that they actually will, once they have access to the first factor and they need a second factor, in some instances, you will have one of the factor where that person just have to click a button to say yes, as to put in the code. And what we have seen from my experience, that persons are actually just wanting to just get that notification from bothering them and just actually click on it without really checking to see, did I really ask for this? Did I really execute this? And we are seeing two-factor fatigue that is also being played as well. We have cloud environment that is under attack. And I think the myth here is for cloud environment is that once I go to the cloud, the infrastructure or the cloud place company that I'm hosting my data, they are responsible for security. But we don't realize that we are responsible for security of our data, whether we go to the cloud or on-prem. So this whole security thing, you still have to take it seriously, and you are responsible. And you will quickly find out how responsible you are for your data if there's a cloud breach, when you have a breach. And then you realize that there possibly could be a fine print that state in the contract that you may have not read, that you are responsible for securing your environment in the cloud. Then we also have a lot of API. We have API integrated in a lot of our systems now. So we've seen a lot of APIs. And if you are not properly securing those APIs and properly managing those across the board, you realize that the possibility of your APIs being breached is great. Then we also, what has changed, we have endpoints, we have remote workforce as well. And we have persons, since COVID has changed everything. And I know that we would like to have persons back in the office and moving about, but you realize that you also, now that things are changed, and things change for a reason, and sometimes it'll be a good reason why. We now have to realize that we have to now begin to not only train our people, training is important. And I always recommend that although you may have training with regards to LMS, also pull them aside, test, find out exactly, bring in, even they come aside and you bring someone and do some sort of training with them so that you can test them and pull questions out of them to see if they really have been paying attention or they just really been just answering the question. In some cases, what I found out from the LMS was that when you go through the training, one person passed the information on to the next one within the company, and they pass it through. And if there are questions, they have all the questions, the answers to the question listed, and they just pass it around. So that person would have gone in and just click on those answers just to pass the test. But did you test them? Did you check to see exactly what's going on? And tell them with regards to remote, how they are, what they ought to do, and how they ought to act. And then you have to monitor. remember I said continuous monitoring. You have to monitor exactly what is going on as well. So the key insight here I want you to remember is identity is a new perimeter. So here it is that you have to think, always think my identity as well. And there's so many ways that this will show up in with straight across the board with inside your security. Defending against AI driven attack. We have AI powered detection tools that can be used. And then we also can think through zero trust. Again, I mentioned that zero trust is a whole thing in itself that we cannot talk about it, but hopefully one day we would. But it is something that needs to be considered, and how you implement it and how you go about zero trust is another thing that you have to consider and do research on it as well. Have strong identity and access control. You cannot have access where that persons have all access to certain things. You have to be able to know exactly what access that they should have to be able to perform their duties, and they should only have that access. There, you cannot give someone all the access. You cannot. You have to tear those access. And then one of the things that also, even if you have an IT person inside within the infrastructure, they should not be logging in with administrative access as well. They should have a regular access that they should use to log into the system, but they have an administrative account as well, which is actually managed by some sort of privileged access manager, so that you could know anytime it is used. So what you're doing, you are monitoring and you put in controls in place as well, and even down to those third-party access if they are necessary. Maybe you may want to disable them until they're absolutely necessary. So there are strong things that you can put in place, and it more boils back down to my security posture, my policies, my procedures. What do I put in place as well? And you have to have continuous monitoring. You don't just put in place and don't monitor. You have to monitor exactly what goes on within your environment as well. And again, I cannot say this enough, security awareness training. Security awareness training also for IT person as well. They have to do security awareness training as well. And do not believe that because they are IT, they shouldn't. And I've read whether there were many IT persons who actually were the breach point to an organization as well. So you want to ensure that everyone is actually involved, including the CEO. I believe that the CEO and the executive should lead this. This should be a top-down approach. This shouldn't be where that you only have this for the line staff. Remember, security is actually also baked in. If you leave something out of your bread, if you're baking a bread or a cake, and if you need something to make that rise, and if you leave that out, what would happen is that will fall down in the middle, or it would not rise. So you want to ensure that this stuff is actually baked in as well, and the executive are leading the charge with this. So we're looking at advanced defense strategy. We want to ensure that we have behavior built in place over signature. We want to have our behavior analysis in place over signature as well. We want to have threat intelligence integration. Now, threat intelligence is important because what it does is actually gives you a sign or give you information what kind of threat is out there against your organization or whatever environment that you might be in. So having that threat, you now can know how to defend against that. It's just like the same as when you look at the police say we found this or we were able to crack this case because of our intelligence. The same way as you now have to be able to say this is how we are able to protect our environment because of the threat intelligence that we had. And because we had that information, we were able to adjust and be able to protect. We looking at human plus AI, more of a hybrid approach. And because there are times when decisions are made from AI, but sometimes you still have human logic that to be able to put in play. There are times when you need logic, human logic, as opposed to looking at algorithm and responding, and it requires human AI, human involvement, excuse me. So you also have to do testing. Test your user, test your environment to ensure that you are able to withstand and ensure that you are able to respond as well. So test your response, because when there, you will quickly understand how quickly you can respond and recover. Is during those times when you have an attack, when you have a breach, or when something goes wrong. You want to be able to know exactly how quickly can I respond as well. So when we look at the future of AI, and we're looking at AI infrastructure, we know that AI is not going anywhere. We just are only scratching the surface of what we can do with AI and AI involvement with inside cybersecurity and AI involvement with even inside the organization as well. So we know that AI will help us to have autonomous security operations where that we are able to respond quickly. When we look at the one thing that I always say that we probably will see, and I think we are saying now, is AI versus AI warfare, where that we have the malicious actors are using AI, and we now on the defense side are actually using AI to defend against it. So almost like a science fiction movie where we see the war rising of the robots and all of that. Now we can see the science fiction with the rise of the AI defending against AI itself, the whole warfare about it. Then we see self-healing system as well. We will see system actually changing, and that doesn't have involvement with regards to human element, that it can actually make changes. And I think we are working on this and we are getting there. And once we are there, we will see a lot of changes. We have predictive cybersecurity defense, and this is where we want to be predictive. We want to be able to predict and be able to defend against the attacks that we are seeing out there. And we want to integrate integrated cyber resilience. We realize that our environment, the resiliency of our environment, it has to be, we have to get to that point when we think about resilience and making sure that if there's anything that happen, or there is a breach, or there is an attack on our environment, we are able to make changes and adapt and be able to defend. So one of the things that we have to consider as well, that I highly recommend it, if we're looking at AI governance and risk as well. And I want you to think through that as well, because EC Council also have training in this area as well with regards to AI and AI governance and all of the different AI. So I recommend that you take a look at those training if you're interested in learning more about AI and AI governance as well. You need to define an AI policy, how AI will be used in my organization. If you go in to use AI, but you don't have a policy to say exactly how is it going to be used and the reach, what will be put into this, and you find yourself putting all kind of data with inside your in your AI module. Now, the key here is that my policy states that whether or not I will have my AI module on-prem, where that it is not exposed to the cloud, or whether I would just use one that is already in place out to the cloud as well. These are things that you have to consider, which is best for your organization as well. And then you have to monitor AI decision. Every decision AI makes, you need to monitor that as well. Don't let AI make decision on your behalf. And I remember growing up as a child, when it always said that don't let someone make any decision on your behalf. You need to know exactly what decision is being made. The same thing, do not trust AI enough to say that I am allowing AI to make a decision on my behalf without monitoring the decision that AI is making on my behalf. And we want to prevent the data poisoning. And then there are a framework out there that you can use to align with, like NIST. We have ISO, and ISO 42001 is also focused on AI as well. But I highly recommend, when you are going to use AI or implement AI in your organization, consider governance and consider your policies as well. Governance provides the control, and then the policy provides the means on how you're going to, how persons will be used, how AI will be used with inside that. So you need both of them working together. You need an over umbrella, which is governance, and underneath that, you need your policies and all of that. And I highly recommend that. So, what are some of the steps that we can use to secure? We have to assess our current security posture. We just cannot assume and make an assumption. We have to know exactly where are we, and being assessed to understand where we are, then we will be able to know exactly where we need to go and how do we get there, and put in steps to say we have step one strategy on how to get there. But if we don't know where we are, then we are lost. And this is some of the things that we usually say when we are lost. Find out exactly where we are. And once you can position where you are, then you realize that where do we need to go and how do we get there? And this is some of the things that we consider. So we identify AI related risk, and we need to show what are the related risks pertaining from AI perspective. We deploy AI driven tools. That the AI driven tools is not end all and end all. You deploy them and they actually assist you in being able to do all of this. Strengthen identity security. Implement continuous monitoring. You have to implement continuous monitoring. Implementing continuous monitoring is so important that you have to continue to monitor. Do not allow stuff to put in place, because if you're not monitoring, how do you know when you have to make some adjustments? And there are times when you have to make adjustments, not just putting AI in place and say that, well, AI is going to make the adjustments. No, you have to make the adjustments yourself, and it requires continuous monitoring. Train your people. Training is important. I cannot say this enough, but how important training is. You have to train your IT people. You also have to invest in training your staff. Because they have access to the data that they will be using on a daily basis. And if your staff are using on a daily basis and they don't know exactly what is expected of them and what they can do, we believe that the system itself can prevent them from doing what they need to do. But from my years of experience, I have seen some crafty staff out there. And you think that you have everything in place, but they also have a friend who have a friend who has a friend who has a friend. And they actually can pass that information down, or information. In fact, why training is so important. And one time in my life, in an organization I worked at, where I had someone who brought in a wireless device and connected to the network. And they connect their laptop to the network because they wanted to work wirelessly. We then had that and didn't approve that at the time within the organization. But this person wanted to be able to be mobile with their laptop, their work issued laptop. And I remember walking over to an organization way across the street from where I worked. And as I pick up my laptop, my phone, I noted that I was able to connect to this free Wi-Fi. And then when I looked at the IP addresses that it was actually spanning, it was one of the internal IP address from the organization. Well, I quickly ran back to take a look into that and see what was going on. But I discovered that there was one person who just wanted to work from a wireless perspective. And we couldn't do anything other than take it down, because why? There was no policies that governed if someone did that. And because there was no policies and it was a first offender we have ever seen, we had to put in some policies to change all of that as well. And the next thing we had to start considering and talking with management and have a conversation, should we now start putting in wireless, because we have persons inside the audit department who has to move to another department to do internal audit. We have persons from the accounts department who needs to move to another department. And even when they have working groups with inside certain areas, they need access to the information as they work. And that is something that we had to consider, and we had strong conversation about that as well. So you want to train your people to know exactly what is expected of them. So training is important. And establish AI governance. Do not just want to be in a rush to put in AI, but you're not putting in the information or putting into parameters or the guidelines to be able to govern AI as well. So the takeaway I want you to remember is that AI is transforming both attack and defense. So we realize that it's transforming and reshaping the infrastructure on our side, and we love it, and it's helping us a lot. But now here it is, the attackers actually love it even more because it's making it easier for them, and they actually can just let it attack and move on to something else as well. While they sip coffee, we sweat trying to defend. And this is where we see AI, how AI is transforming it, doing its transformation. We also know that traditional security is no longer enough. So we cannot focus on the traditional. We now have to focus on how do we integrate AI seamlessly within our environment and use it within our environment to defend. But we also realize that we have to put in the guidelines on how we ought to use AI within our environment as well. And then identity is the new battleground. So we think that, personally, this is what I think from what I've seen, identity is the new battleground. And this is what we have seen. And I've seen this happening a lot from a lot of the articles that I have read in the past recently, and show that identity very well is heading where the new battleground is as well. And then we look at governance is essential. I know that we may not look at governance as important, but governance is important. And we have corporate governance, which you look at from management from the board perspective. And then we also have governance from IT, security. And then we also implement what it is how these systems, how we get the value from these things. If we don't understand how we ought to get the value from these and just putting them in place, then they are just there, but we are not receiving value from them. So when you're looking at governance and all of that, it says that our shareholder wants this. How are we able to receive value for our shareholders from these things? And that's where governance come into play. And the thing with governance is that you still have to monitor. You still have to ensure that it is being carried out. There's still a responsibility of due care and due diligence to ensure that it is in place and ensure that processes are carried it out as you intended to be carried out. So you still have to have a watchful eye over it as well. So my closing thoughts, and I want to leave you with, is that AI has not just changed cybersecurity, it has redefined the battlefield. The question is no longer whether you are secured, but whether you are secured enough against intelligent adversary. So one time ago, it was, we were able to ensure that we're secure. We can go home, we can sleep at night, and we can relax because we have a few places out there AI was not involved. But now, guess what? We cannot. It has changed cybersecurity. We have new battlefield, and then we cannot longer actually think for a moment that there's not persons out there who are not trying to attack. They're just looking for the moment to be able to attack. Thank you for listening. The thing with AI, and I've went through this as well personally with regards to security for pertaining the AI. What we have to do is requires adjustments in AI. Remember when during the presentation I mentioned that there's still a human element in the midst of that. You still have to adjust to tell AI exactly what do you need it to do. If you don't just put AI in place and hoping that AI will know exactly what needs to happen, you have to ensure that you are telling AI, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for. Can you adjust this? It's not you actually going to do the work, but you actually instructing AI to do the work for you. And you have to give the AI the information that it needs to be able to do the work correctly. So it is the human element involved inside this, and the human element have to know exactly what instruction I need to filter to AI. That is true. AI, it can. And it boils back down to, I always say, simplicity is always good. But it boils back down to designing how you design your architecture or design the infrastructure for AI as well to be able to do. Because it can become complex, but that boils back down to exactly knowing what you want to do. How would I use AI in this place, and how I can actually structure the infrastructure? So again, human element is key inside this when you're structuring these kind of things, because yes, if you leave it to AI alone, or if you leave it to a point and you have no direction exactly where you need to go, then you can end up developing a very complex environment until even the persons who have to manage that environment will find it very difficult to manage that environment as well. So you are correct, yes, it can. I love that question because that is always a thought that I remember when we did computers, when computers came into effect during my time. And we said that we now will move to computers. Our computers going to now run everything and humans have nothing to do. We realized that that's not a true. Humans are still involved inside it. And when you see something like AI, what it is created by humans to make certain job easier. These are certain things that we would have done sometimes 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to find out that now we can find something like AI to be able to assist us inside these, to be able to return quick analysis that we had to go and do hours of research by reading through books, by finding different ways. But what it did is actually made it a lot easier. So when you look at AI is not replacing the human. What it is the human actually finding the best way that AI can come alongside me and assist me in being able to do my job quickly and effectively. That's how I look at AI. One of the challenges I have seen was that thing you hear me say, governance, and knowing exactly how AI will be used. It is one thing to integrate AI with inside your environment or your cybersecurity posture. How would it be used? What information would be expected of it? How would it function? And these are things where I've seen that organization didn't consider. They just, AI is the new great thing. It is the new buzzword. How would it be fit in our environment? And how will it function is not something that I have seen persons consider until after the fact. I know I was part of a group where that someone who implement AI with inside their cybersecurity environment. And one of the things he recommended from his experience was that the same thing, governance. He said that we had to put in governance first, and then we had to put in policy and know exactly how it would affect our environment. And then we had to do trials and test run to see if it's doing exactly what needs to be done. And not only I can share a real world example with you, I can share an experience with you. Because I remember I was at an organization where that you had a lot of stuff going on within that organization with regards to either virus and all of that. And when I came into that organization and I saw these things, the first thing I did was start restructuring the organization, restructuring the architecture in hope for AI. Policies, governance, all of that was placed in this environment. And then when we put in AI, in an AI-based system into play, all of the issues that we had automatically went away. AI was able to capture a lot of the stuff that we did not know was going on within the environment. And I was able to make the adjustments. And once the adjustments were made, it was like sunshine for that organization. They were happy, and all the concerns that the CEO had actually just went away. He became comfortable because we were able to respond quickly to certain threats. So I can say from a personal experience, several personal experiences, AI have enhanced the help of the organization, I can say that it is a good plus to your people as well within the organization. Over the next 3-5 years, we are going to see, when we look at the SOC environment, we're going to see changes happen. The first thing we're going to look at, as I mentioned, we're going to see more predictive, being able to predict more of the threats that are happening inside it. So we can see where that we are able to respond quickly. We also will be able to get certain report that what CEOs and the board may require. It can assist you with reporting as well, because there were reports that we could not, the board may ask that, what is the threat to our organization? We may sit and say, I do not know what the threats are to our organization. So now we have to go there and try to do our research. When they ask, what are the threats to our organization? We are able to go and print a report and say, these are the threats to our organization, because why? AI now are monitoring those threats to our organization as well. And we want to be able to respond as quickly as we can, and we want to be able to give information when it is asked, as opposed to say that we don't know. We want to know, and AI will assist us in helping us to know exactly the threats, exactly how can we defend, and what we need to do with regards to the organization. So I think the future is bright with implementing AI in the organization, and I think that it is something that should be considered, because it just so much benefits to helping us as cybersecurity specialists and experts. I just want to let all cybersecurity specialists know that AI is not a bad thing. I think you should consider how it will fit within your organization. And there are training out there, as I mentioned, EC Council has different trainings out there that you can utilize to assist you and all of that. So I think you should consider it and see how it will fit within your organization, and have some fun with it as well. Play around with it, get to know it, and see what you can do with it.